Hey everyone, welcome to Discover the Leader Within and the Reaching Higher podcast. I have Jae-Ann White with me here. Welcome, Jae-Ann.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, love having you. But before we go into that, I'd be remiss to not thank James Gray, right, and who's a Reaching Higher mentor, who's one of our volunteers. So I want to thank James and the Michigan Institute of Athletics for this beautiful studio that we get to do our podcast in, and for producing our podcast. And right, Jan, you're a Reaching Higher teacher. Where would we be without our mentors?
Right. Well, and just to be able to pull different people in who have different levels of expertise and different gifts and talents, and to be able to kind of pull those all together to make Reaching Higher even better.
Yes. So, shameless plug, everyone. If Reaching Higher and some of the messages we have here, if it impacts you, you get curious about it, we need you. We need volunteers and mentors, and we'd love to have you. Check us out. Go to our website. Jae-Ann, give a little background for our audience. Obviously, we have taught together in Reaching Higher, but just share with everyone a little bit about your background, your experience as a coach, teacher, all of that.
Okay. I am from South Lyon, and I have two boys who are now, recently graduated from college, and I'm a former high school math teacher. So high school kids are kind of my group of kids that I love. And I've had a variety of roles over the last 30 years, and in almost every single aspect, it's involved working with children and teenagers. So I taught high school math for 10 years. I was also a basketball and tennis coach for boys and girls. And then once my kids were born, I chose to become a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. I did continue to tutor, so I've tutored for the last 15 plus years also. I also attend Community Bible Church here in Brighton, and I run a basketball league for our community with about 500 kids. And so again, just working with kids and working on we do a lot of character development in that, and just working on ways to help kids be the best that they can be. I recently became an instructor a few years ago after experiencing Reaching Higher as a parent.
Yeah. So talk to that a little bit. You were doing so many of these things, and then you experienced Reaching Higher as a parent.
I did.
With Colson actually going through the program.
Yep.
Share with everyone a little bit about that journey and how you got here to be an instructor.
Okay. My son Colson was in the very first Reaching Higher class at South Lyon High School. Actually, Troy was his mentor. And at that point, Reaching Higher was very new in the South Lyon community. And so I hadn't heard of the program at this point. I just received the packet of information that my son was chosen. And as a parent and a former teacher, I was immediately curious and didn't understand why my child was chosen. So I was skeptical. So I looked the information up on the website, and I thought, okay, this looks like it has a lot of things that I would want for my child. I actually called the school, spoke with the principal, and said, please tell me, what this is about. And he just communicated that my son was chosen just because someone saw leadership potential in him. And I still didn't know much. I didn't get much information from my 15-year-old coming home each week, other than the postcards that I got from his mentor, Troy. And then I sat at graduation, and I was so strongly impacted by the stories of how Reaching Higher in just 8 short weeks had impacted kids personally, socially, academically, and just the growth that happened. I knew immediately that was something that I wanted to be a part of. So I remember approaching Troy at graduation, and I just said, how do I get involved? I want to be a part of this. I was a mentor for probably 3 or 4 sessions, and then I became an instructor. And as a former high school teacher, that was just a natural kind of thing for me to flow into. And I've done that, I think, for about 8 or 9 years at the high school and middle school level. And I've done a variety of different environments and classrooms, and South Lyon's kind of where my heart is, and I've just enjoyed every minute of getting to work with kids and just being a part of what Reaching Higher is doing.
Yeah, and you actually called me too, not just the principal, right? We had a conversation. Yes. Because I was actually Colson's coach.
Correct.
In basketball, the JV coach at that point in time, and so I think that's important because a lot of parents are wondering, right? Why did my son or daughter get selected? what is this from that standpoint? And anyone that has an experience with it, they're kind of like, what was I thinking, right? Afterwards, after seeing the fruit or the results of the program. So this is your opportunity. So if we have parents and you're talking to one of our parents, why should their son or daughter take Reaching Higher?
There's so many reasons why. And I think as a parent, I think you can come up with a lot of reasons maybe in your head why your child shouldn't be. Well, they're going to miss class. Well, they're really quiet. Well, what does this look like for my child? I feel very confident no matter where your child is in at school, whether it's academic, socially, wherever they are at, Reaching Higher has something to offer. And I think that's something that's really special about Reaching Higher is that it meets kids where they are and it helps them get to the next level. So regardless of whether your kid is the shy kid, the quiet kid, the struggling student, the student who you feel like has it all together, I think Reaching Higher can still equip them and make them better and a better leader and a better person overall, regardless of where they're coming at. And I know that sometimes it's scary to have your kid try something new, but I would encourage you to kind of push them to try something outside their comfort zone. And I mean, every parent comes back and has said, I'm so glad that my child was given this opportunity. To the point at South Lyon, we actually have parents who now are calling and saying, how do I get my child in this program? And typically we don't take recommendations. It's based on teacher referral. But now it's just become a thing in the community where parents recognize that that's something that's valued, that they've heard from other parents, and they want their child to be a part of that also.
Yeah. We actually have a waiting list, right? I mean, it's not a guarantee,
Right.
So it's really a privilege to be able to be part of the class. Last year, you, and before I go there, you really, you accepted a new position as a leader on the administration staff at South Lyon High School. Share with everyone your story in regards to all of this experience that you've had as a coach, as a prior teacher. All of that really helped get you into that role, but you also said, man, Reaching Higher had a huge impact on me, and you believe is a major reason why you got that role. So talk to that a little bit. What did Reaching Higher give you for you to get that invitation and that offer last year?
Okay. I, for the last 2 years, have been the restorative practices facilitator in South Lyon at South Lyon High School and at Millennium Middle School. And for those of you who don't maybe know what that is, it's basically you're building relationships with students. You're helping them make good life choices. If it's a discipline issue, they would come discuss with me what happened, and we talk about how do we move forward from that, and just ways to kind of incorporate them back into the school community if they've made a really poor choice. If there's student conflict, we kind of work through that. And I got that opportunity for that job basically because I had been in the schools and doing things with Reaching Higher, and they actually asked me to apply for the job. And in my interview, I referenced Reaching Higher so many times, they were probably like, okay, please stop talking about Reaching Higher. But I just felt like there was such a good connection between what I was already doing in Reaching Higher as an instructor and what my role was supposed to be as the facilitator for restorative practices. And, in the interview, one of the things they said, kind of jokingly, is that we want you to come in and change the culture of the school.
Ooh, big one.
And I was only in the building 2 days a week. And so that's a little overwhelming, but it's also really exciting. But I think that the way you change the culture of a school is you start with individuals, and then you start with smaller communities, sports teams and the band and the choir, and then that ripples out into the entire school community. And I just think that being able to be in the building as an instructor, and then it gave me the opportunity to check in with my students, even once class was over, and continue those relationships and, hopefully hold them accountable and help them to continue to work on improving the things that they had learned in the class during the time. So it was a really special, opportunity to get to kind of blend those two things together because I think they were so closely tied.
So let me follow that up. Did you impact, and did Reaching Higher together, did you impact the culture in the school?
I like to think so. Because I could see the change in individual students. I was able to observe them in the lunchroom. I was able to, something that we kind of started that really wasn't initially part of my role was bringing in new students and how do we incorporate them to feel comfortable in a new environment. So I immediately would go right to my Reaching Higher students and say, hey, there's a new student. Can they sit with you at lunch? Would you be willing to talk to them and help them find a connection, whether that be with you or with kids you know that they have things in common with. And, just being able to observe them and see that they were living out, and then just being able to connect with kids. They would come to me during advisory hour or they would ask for letters of recommendation. And all of that came out of being able to interact with them and Reaching Higher. So I do think, because I saw kids impacting and taking roles in student leadership and how they were changing the culture of their sports teams and the Palm Squad and all of those things. So I do think, sometimes you don't see those tiny ripples that initially happen, but you have to believe that as they ripple out, each ripple gets larger and that it impacts more people.
So powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Jae-Ann. You talk to the parents. Now I want you to talk to, because there are a lot of prospective administrators or teachers that hear about us. Why should they bring Reaching Higher into their school? Why should their school say yes to Reaching Higher? And you kind of just shared that, but this is your opportunity to say it directly to them.
As a former teacher, I taught high school math for 10 years, and I was the teacher probably as a young, inexperienced teacher who felt like there was almost nothing more important than math. Like, I need you to learn pre-calculus. I need you to learn your trigonometry. As an older, hopefully wiser parent and teacher and someone who's worked in schools, there's so many demands on teachers these days, all these expectations and requirements that they have, that the things that are taught in Reaching Higher, they don't really have time to incorporate stress management and setting goals and all the things that we teach on an interpersonal level. So we just want to come along with what schools and teachers and parents are already doing and hopefully just helping equip your students more, because we have the time and energy in a class to do that. I think if you want your academic level of your students to improve, Reaching Higher can help with that, because students are setting goals academically. We work with them on picking a class and a goal that they're working toward. If you want the social climate of your school to change, that has to change with each individual student. And then, it ripples out into what can happen with how they treat each other in the hallway. And if you want your kids to feel a part of a school community, Reaching Higher does that. It brings kids from, diverse backgrounds, and it allows them an opportunity to feel like, I have a place here. And I think that alone is so powerful in changing the climate of a school, just by changing how kids feel when they're there. And kids will tell you, Reaching Higher days are my favorite days. I love walking in and just feeling welcomed and accepted. And then they learn to love on each other in a way that they didn't do before.
Yeah. Really, what I like to tell schools and businesses and organizations is the real culture. We might say culture and what's up on the billboard, let's say the locker room, right? This is our culture. But the real culture is the mindsets of the individuals on the team, in the school, and all of that. And that's where Reaching Higher is what I would say a mindset course, where it gives individuals a leadership mindset for life. So, and talking to that, maybe let's transition a little bit now. Colson and Garrett have both graduated from college very successfully, and you could get an opportunity to brag on them a little bit. But how did Reaching Higher, that experience, along with all the other experiences that they had in high school, how do you see Reaching Higher actually impacting them now into the individuals, maybe even some of the careers that they chose to take? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think that in the moment, the biggest thing that they took away from Reaching Higher was just understanding how everyone else had problems and had struggles too. And I think it made them more grateful for their environment at home and just their success at school and just the friend group that they had. I think you take a lot for granted sometimes, and it helped them see that there were kids who maybe had some struggles that they had never understood before. Now, if you fast forward that, again, I was an instructor and a mentor as my kids were kind of finishing high school. But I think then it changed how I talked to them a little bit. I remember talking to both of my kids about do the things that scare you. And I don't know that I would have thought about that verbiage, honestly, prior to being a Reaching Higher mentor and instructor. And so we talked a lot with our kids about do the big and scary, and they did the big and scary. My youngest just graduated from Liberty University. He's currently a flight instructor. At 21, he's teaching adults how to fly airplanes.
Wow.
And hopefully in about 9 months, he'll be going to the airlines. And he was my kid who didn't love school. He did it. He was a good student, but it wasn't his thing. And just helping him find what he was created to do and what his passion was. And he's also was a mentor for flight instructors. So I could see that he was able to take the leadership skills that he learned in Reaching Higher and how do you work with people that are different and how do you interact and how do you kind of look outside yourself and how you treat other people. My oldest graduated from Michigan State in 2022 in mechanical engineering, and he did that job for a year, enjoyed it. But his big and scary is that he decided to quit his engineering job in July, and it's a good thing. And he decided to pursue a pastoral internship at his church in East Lansing, and that's scary. To switch careers and potentially learn to live on less. But his main goal was to just impact others for something that mattered on a greater level outside of himself. And I think I've seen how he has grown and how he got to mentor people and led Bible studies and discipled people. And, those are leadership skills that I have to believe he learned in Reaching Higher. And I just think the interactions that he learned about interacting with people that are different, because he went to college and found a different group of friends than what he had in high school. And I do believe that the skills that they learned, I think that on a subconscious level that they're kind of back there for kids.
Right.
And sometimes they think, oh, I don't need that skill. But I like to think that 6 months or a year down the road or 2 years down the road when they're faced with something, like Mackenzie Rowe, can reflect back and go, what I learned there has been impactful and helps me to change my life for the better.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And man, am I proud of that. Both of them had them both in the Reaching Higher class, and obviously coached Colson. And couldn't be more proud as a coach, right? To pursue what you love and figure out, how to provide by doing that. I mean,
Right.
That's the definition of an entrepreneur, regardless of
Yes.
what field you go into.
Yes.
And to do it because he wants to help others is so impactful.
Well, and I think, not to interrupt you, and I think that's the value. I mean, you impacted him as a coach, but also as a mentor. And we're probably going to talk about this in a minute, but I don't think you can underestimate the value of other adults pouring into your kids. And that's something that Reaching Higher provides. Every parent wants other adults to see the good in their kids and to pour into them. And my kids are a result of people in South Lyon who cared about them and poured into them.
Yeah. So let's go there. Let's go there. What do you see in regards to if someone is thinking about, oh my gosh, do I have the skill set? Can I really mentor in this program? We're hearing about all of this transformation. I just don't feel qualified enough. So talk a little bit in regards to why should someone mentor, and especially if they might be doubting themselves that I don't know if I could do it. I don't know what value I could bring to a young man or young woman. Talk about that as an instructor.
Yeah. I think that, if you can be a good listener and if you're kind and compassionate and you care about impacting others, those are the qualifications that you need. And that's the main value really of a mentor. You don't have to have a teaching degree. You don't have to have a psychology degree or a counseling degree, because that's not your role, is not to be a counselor. Your role is to listen and just be a mentor and a facilitator in your small group. And I think all of us want to feel like we're impacting the world and leaving it a better place. And I feel like Reaching Higher, you're impacting your 5 which is a part of the 25, but then you have to realize those kids are going out. And so you have an indirect effect on others that you may never even meet. And, it's a relatively low time commitment. You don't have to do any extra prep really prior, other than sending out postcards, which is a minimal time. That, again, I think it's a minimal time investment for a large return on what not only you can give to others, but what you get in return of just interacting. And I think I always say that I believe that people, once you're involved, your view of teenagers will drastically change. I think society tells us that they're lazy and that they don't listen and they don't care. I don't know that that's entirely true. I think after being involved in Reaching Higher, you would walk away and go, wow, these are every group is a great group of kids. And it's just impressive to see who they are and where they go during those 8 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. And we're both product. We both started out as mentors, by the way, before we moved into teaching. So let's switch it to, what do you get out of mentoring, right? You think you're going in to give, but you actually get, and let's, Jae-Ann, think about in terms of the growth that you've seen as leaders and as individuals of some of the folks that come in and mentor. Talk to your experience about that.
Yeah, I think that, again, like you said, you come in going, do I have enough to give? And you walk out almost selfishly feeling like, I got more out of this than what I gave. I think that, you learn a lot, even as an adult, and you can see things through kids' perspectives. And if you're a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle and you have kids in your lives, I guarantee you will walk away better equipped to relate to the teenagers in your own life and the children in your own life because of your experience in Reaching Higher. I think it gives you a better understanding of what kids are struggling with and where they're coming from. And it makes you be more accountable. Like, are you managing stress well? Are you using your time wisely? Are you being intentional with your times and your talent? And, are you expressing gratitude? Are you being kind and complimenting the people in your life? It would make you a better boss, a better employee. I often say, if I had found Reaching Higher prior to becoming a parent, or my kids at least getting to middle school, or a teacher, I think I would have been much more effective in how I dealt with them and how I communicated and how I understood them. So, what you get out is, threefold compared to what you give during that time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So for some students, Reaching Higher is a game changer. It changes, and when I say that, my definition of it changes the course, the trajectory of a life. And you've seen that, and you've shared about that. And we had a student, when we talked the class together, share a little bit about your experience, maybe with Andreas, and give a little proof to that.
Yeah. Andreas was a new student at Southland High within a few months of when he came to Reaching Higher. And I remember him walking in that first day and he, I think, was struggling to, how do I fit into this new school? I'm coming from a new kind of a culture and a new community. And I remember him telling in one of our first sessions, saying that like what he wanted to do when he grew up was he wanted to open a restaurant. That was kind of his end goal. And even I would say his physical appearance kind of transformed over the course of Reaching Higher, and just inward and outward. And I remember him coming to me and saying, I think I'm gonna go for student council. And this was after class had ended, and he said, will you please write me a letter of recommendation, which I did. And he got elected to student council, became a student leader involved in a variety of activities at Southline High School. And then the following summer, I had just gotten emailed as a school staff some information about some type of a consortium in Oakland County for student leaders. So I emailed it to him and just said, I think you would be great for this. I would suggest you apply. I kind of honestly expected, as a 15-year-old boy, that he'd be like, okay, thanks for the email. He actually followed up, got chosen, and participated in that, I believe, last summer. And he just came away saying, like, I know what I want to do now. I want to do something that changes the world. So he went from a kid who, I don't know where I belong in the world, to now I want to be a part of making the world a better place. He was elected prom king, which doesn't matter. That's not anything like important in terms of like leadership status, but it just shows his confidence. It shows how well he was accepted just like a year and a half later as part of that school community coming from someone who was new to our building. And I think I 100% believe that reaching higher changed the course of his high school life, which then I believe is going to change his future.
Yeah, and we had the opportunity. I talked to him in a recent interview, and he's kind of like, it changes your mindset. And that's what we saw with him, and what a powerful story.
Well, I was just thinking actually this morning that I think for a lot of middle school and high school students, high school and middle school is just something to get through. Like I have to get through this before I get on with the rest of my life. And I think what Reaching Higher does is it helps them go, well, I can start changing my future today by these habits that I'm creating and just how I set goals and how I interact with others and how I can be disciplined. And I think then they understand that this is part of my process to becoming who I was intended to be instead of, well, I'm going to get through this and then I will. Because I think sometimes we do that. Well, I'm gonna become a better person and a better leader once this is over. But Reaching Higher says we're going to do this right now, and I think that helps change their mindset and what they choose to achieve.
That's the power of it. That's why we're so passionate about bringing it to youth, because it's at a formative stage, and that light bulb goes off then. Versus, hopefully, they get through high school, right? And the sad piece is some kids aren't. They're just not getting through. So that's I thank you for sharing that. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit in regards to what I'm going to call our leadership community. And that is all of our mentors, our instructors. What is it meant to Jae-Ann to be part of Reaching Higher's leadership community, part of its community?
Well, I think there's a quote or something that talks about, you are the composite of the 5 people or the people that you surround yourself with. If you want to be a better athlete, surround yourself with athletes. If you want to be a better cook, surround yourself with people who cook. And I do believe that every person I have met at Reaching Higher is of the highest caliber. Just kind people who care so much about students and just want to make the world. I know we keep saying want to make the world a better place, but and when you surround yourself with those kind of people, I find myself to be happier, to be more intentional with my time, and you're encouraged to always be better because you're encouraging each other, and it's the biggest, happiest group of cheerleaders ever, and it's just a really you think about so many work environments aren't happy, that they're toxic, and there's always something, but and Reaching Higher doesn't feel like work because it's just happy and it's a great group of people. And I've been honored to be a part of that leadership team.
And we're so honored to have you. So now I want to plant a little bit of a vision, which you're aware of based on a previous conversation, but we're being very intentional about extending that community after students graduate to basically create a playbook where they can reach higher for life through our playbook, right? Through our journal, through having a vision map and determining where they want to be in 5 years, where they want to be next year, who they want to be within all of that, being very intentional about who they surround them with, right? And then going to war with what I would like to say, those I am statements of who they want to be. So talk a little bit in regards to what do you think that impact's going to have on those students and on others as we welcome them into the community?
Well, I think we've all been a part of those conferences or seminars or classes where you leave with this big high and these great intentions to do better with your eating or your exercise or your work environment. But I think we all know that if there's no follow through after that, there's probably a downward spiral of really your follow through on the things that you learned. And I think, if you want good habits, they have to become daily. They have to become, something that you're writing down. They have to be something like, we talk a lot with them about being able to visualize. And that was always my thing as an instructor before I worked in the schools. It's so hard. You work with these kids for 8 weeks and then it's like graduation and it's awesome and you learn so much and go be the best version of yourself. And then nothing. And it's really then up to them to follow through. And, how many of us really have the ability to just do that on our own? So I think the thing about the vision and the journal and the playbook is that it gives them the tools to be able to be really intentional about continuing with setting goals. And, are you managing your stress well? And, who are you going to be today? And what are you grateful for? And, those things have to be practiced daily and weekly to just become a part of your life. They're habits, and if you don't continue to build on those habits, they'll eventually die out. And in order for them to flourish, they need those habits to be consistent. And if we can get them to be consistent at 18, 16, 20, they're going to be much better off than if they wait until they're older and then life is busy and you have to incorporate those habits now so they become a permanent part of who you are.
Yeah, I see a big smile come when you're talking about that, right? It's exciting to think about the future. It's exciting the program's so powerful, and listen, the stories that we've shared with you up to this time, and that transformational impact has actually happened without this. And now when you add this to it, it really is an exciting time for Reaching Higher. So Reaching Higher, this, is community-based program where it doesn't happen without volunteers stepping in to be a volunteer in the program. And in most situations, it doesn't happen unless it's funded, right? And we're fortunate in South Lyon that they're able to find ways to fund some of the class, but it's really primarily by the community coming around that. So I know you're very, very grateful for that. So I'm going to give you the opportunity just to say the impact and say thank you to all of our partners, our mentors, and that make that happen.
Absolutely. Just thank you. And I know it's hard sometimes when you give of your time and your money and maybe you don't get to visually see or experience those, but I can guarantee you those life-changing moments are happening because of your money, because of your time. Again, I know I've referenced this before, but it's awesome when you can invest a little and gain a lot. And that's exactly, I think, by donating to Reaching Higher, even if it's only enough for one student to sit in that chair, that one student then has the power, again, to ripple out and impact their team and their school and their family and their community. So it's not I gave money and it didn't bloom. Though it planted seeds that then can grow and flourish into something beyond probably what you could even imagine. And for some people, maybe you can't give of the money, but then the time is also really valuable. And, very seldom do we have someone mentor once and then not mentor again. Typically, once we get someone to mentor, they say, please let me come back and mentor again, that it's something that people want to repeat. And so I'm just so grateful for the adults that have full-time jobs that figure out how to incorporate that and just care about kids in their community enough to want to be involved because, there's a lot of places that you can spend your time and money. And I think that you get the biggest bang for your buck with Reaching Higher. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And just for all of you that are out there, youth are our cause in bringing personal leadership development, high quality leadership development. That's our purpose. And we do support organizations. We do support the corporate world, right? We do support individuals who are executives. We have executive coaching and all of that. But it's all, yes, to help those individuals. But our cause is about reaching youth, right? And reaching everyone with this powerful tool. So we cannot do this without you. And we thank you so much. Boy, today has been fun. Jan, it feels like we're teaching again, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Thank you.